I created an entire operating system for my business that is at the level, I've brought it to the level where it's autonomous, right? I'm still working through that. But one of the things that it has the ability to do is look across every part of my business and let me operate at the speed of thought.
GTM AI podcast with Jonathan Moss and Coach K, where you get the latest with AI and GTM today. GTM AI podcast with Jonathan Moss and Coach K.
Everyone, welcome to the GTM AI podcast, where we let people cook, not just theory or strategy, but actually show the receipts and the impact. And today, I'm excited about the Today Chef, Ryan Staley. So there's only one rule of this show, and that show is that you've actually got to cook, show us the receipts. Because there's a million podcasts out there, or LinkedIn posts, Substack newsletters, etc., where people are just saying, hey, AI changed my go-to-market, AI changed my business, but they actually give you nothing that you can use. Or if they do give you something, you don't know how to implement it. So this is where we pull someone into the kitchen, hand them the mic and say, show us exactly what you made and exactly how you made it. The mess, the process, the things that actually worked. So as I mentioned, today's chef is Ryan Staley. So he is the founder of Well Boss. He also hosts the Top 1% Global. It's a Top 1% Global podcast called The Scale Up Show. And he actually grew a whole entire division from 0 to 30 million with 4 salespeople and no marketing budget. So I'm sure all y'all are curious about that. And then in his spare time, which I don't know how he gets any spare time, but he's taught over 800 CROs how to use AI to work less and sell more. And he also has over 3,000 leaders that view his weekly AI strategies called Superhuman Revenue. It's a newsletter on Substack. Make sure that you subscribe. So he's just not here to inspire you. He's actually going to show you what he does. So let's get into it. Ryan, welcome to the show, my friend. Excited to have you.
What's up, man? Good to see you again.
Always, my friend. We always running into each other, whether it's in Pavilion or other places. And obviously a big fan of your content. So thanks for everything that you do, man. What did I miss? Tell me a little bit more about you. So obviously I just summarized it, but what did I miss? What else does the audience need to know about who Ryan Staley is?
Yeah, I think so. A lot of it was like backwards facing, which makes sense. So, but right now, I think the most critical thing is I've been working on AI transformation with go-to-market teams for the last 3 years, and I'm working with companies ranging from 20 million to 20 billion. So I have multiple publicly traded companies I'm working with at the executive level. And so that's really given me a unique perspective on what the market is going through, what they need, and then what are their blind spots. And that's something that's like super exciting that I'm seeing right now in terms of my clients. And then the other thing that I think is I've been really focused on the pre-AGI path, or artificial general intelligence path for my business. And I want to dog food whatever I'm doing so then I could bring this to my clients from a realm of experience and not just philosophical approaches, right? Which is the whole nature of your show, which is why I'm excited about being on, man.
Man, that's great. Yeah. Before the show, you and I were jamming on things that we were building or doing. So yeah, so we're in the thick of it. And yeah, I'm curious, actually, you mentioned something. So I would love to just poke on it for a second. So sorry for the curveball, but you mentioned something about AGI. So what does that mean to you? Can you explain to the audience if they're like, what AGI, what is this thing he's talking about? So what does that mean to you and how are you like getting ready for it? Or what are you thinking about?
Yeah. I think probably the best way to describe it is the way Dario Amodei, if I'm pronouncing his last name right, is the CEO of Anthropic, really smart guy. So he had a 2.5-hour interview on the Dwarkish podcast. And one of the things that really opened my mind to what's happening and what's coming so that I could reverse engineer how to prepare for it is he basically said that he thinks there's a 50% chance in 18 months that we will have a country full of geniuses in a data center. And a country full of geniuses, what he equated to that imagine a whole country full of like Nobel Prize winning intelligent people. So that's like what he classified as AGI, which I think is pretty cool because it helps you like visualize it. I saw something else where if you have a really smart human person like you and I, they might have 160, 170, 180 IQ, right? The AI models will be operating at 240 in terms of like IQ. So artificial general intelligence basically means that AI has gotten smarter than us than effectively all tasks or knowledge work that we could do. And so that's what I equated to.
Gotcha. That's awesome. Thanks for the explanation. So I'm sure people are like, okay, it makes a lot more sense now. All right. So tell us a little bit, what will someone watching this, so if the audience is going to make all the way through this podcast, what are they going to get from today? Tell them a little bit about what they can expect.
Yeah. So I'm building an agent native company, right? So kind of what I was mentioning, I have to dog food, whatever I'm providing for clients or test in advance of them to make sure it works. And so I created an entire operating system for my business that is at the level, I've brought it to the level where it's autonomous, right? I'm still working through that. But one of the things that it has the ability to do is look across every part of my business and let me operate at the speed of thought, which has never been possible before. And I can give specific examples for that. But what it'll start to unlock for you, if you stay through the end, is I'll show you examples of basically what's possible and what exactly I mean by that. And think of it like there's been a lot of talk about OpenClaw. It's like a more secure version of using OpenClaw with Claude Code or Codex and Cursor. So then basically you could access any data, any system in seconds, right, to make decisions. And then eventually, once you get like the quality aspect down, then you could start getting in more into the automated space. So that's what I want to share today.
Love that. And we're going to get into that. Let's get into it right now. Let's see what you got. What I'm excited about, like you said, is, and I think this is important for everyone while Ryan pulls this up, which is dog fooding. And a lot of companies or people out there will tell you that they know how to do it, or they'll even sell you something, but they're not even using it. And I think that's a big indicator on, are they AI native, or or what they're selling, is it actually valuable, because they should be using it as well. And for those out there that haven't started or just getting started, as we talk about, is I think curiosity and experimentation are super critical right now, because you and I were even talking about this right before we started, which was, it's hard to keep up with all the changes and everything. Even for you and I who are in this thing, it's even hard for us. And so sometimes I just block out the noise and put my head down and build and play and experiment and learn. And so for anyone watching, I think that's the first step in the path, is like block everything out and just go learn and experiment. So I love that you're doing that.
Yeah, man. No, I totally agree with you on that. So let me share my screen and I'll go like macro to micro. So I actually created a post on this the other day, and it's really what it says is an AI agent assistant org chart. So what I did before I get into like the granular pieces of this is like, I looked across every like assistant or agent or teammate that I created in my business across ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini. Those are like the core 3 models that I use, map those out, and then also looked across like how I have agents in my like what I call my agentic operating system. And so this is a glimpse of that. It's not as detailed. As you can see, these operating systems, we're going to drill down on the CEO one today. So I'm going to show you that, but I have this across sales, product. I have different C-suites, right? I have a chief counsel, a chief HR officer, and a CMO. So other executives to complement me. I would call my CEO operating system almost like my co-CEO. And then these are different components where I have support in terms of building out and making decisions. And think of these all are different like AI assistants or agents in my company, right? And so the beautiful thing about it is when you structure something that's like an agentic, I don't want to say mesh, but like interconnective tissue, then you could have a centralized context area where it understands so much about you and what you're doing. You don't need to keep reinventing the wheel. That's step one. If we dig a little bit deeper, this is the folder structure and basically the CEO system. And so I want to show you this just because this will be like a really good understanding of what's under the hood. And then I'll show you an example of an output from this. But you look at this like relatively quickly. And you got any questions, man? After the initial? No? Okay.
No, I think it's awesome that you're like you said, you're dog fooding it and building an AI native company and showcasing that. No, I think this is what a lot of people are trying to figure out, is how do I do this? So I'm glad that you're diving into it.
Cool. And just as a precursor, like the simplest way to get started is with Claude Code with the desktop app. And I can even show this with Claude Code with the desktop app with effectively you're going to need a GitHub account so that you can store the code there. But so what I have here is this is in Obsidian. And the reason why I have it in Obsidian is because there's a couple things. One is if you, and I'll get into the file index in a second. The beautiful thing about it is, and I started to show you, this is like a
That's
graph
super cool.
view, which don't have a seizure, right? But this is all the context that it looks of. And what you're starting to see is you see these little connections. It has interconnected layers of different things I've done so that when I look through the model and ask it questions or do things, I could actually effectively pull up. It makes relational patterns, not just what I'm looking for, but what it means. Okay. And I'll get back to the framework, but basically this CEO operating system, it's got frameworks, interviews, reviews, goals, uploads, and memories. Okay. And so why this is important is because I used to struggle with having notes that I would write down in a notepad. I would take notes on my computer. I would talk through things and I got frustrated because it was all disconnected. Okay. So one of the things that, sorry, man, I lost my spot here. Let me stay here. Let me stop sharing for a second. I'll pull it up. But really effectively what that did is it made it frustrating. And I felt like I had to keep redoing things over and over for myself because I'd have to keep repeating myself. It factored in 2 things, but not 4 and 5, right? It didn't factor my personal life. And so I'll show you the way that I have it structured because this is really strong from that perspective. Okay. So I have a centralized, like basically this is called my README file. So this is an explanation of how the system works, but it's got principles, North Star, and then memory. So principles are obviously just, and models work the best when you work at a principles level because it understands philosophically what you're trying to do versus a memory list. North Star is like what I'm chasing, my ultimate direction, and then memory. Beautiful thing about this is a trick whenever you're using memory in any of these areas. At the end of a long session that went really well, a great tip you could say is, okay, hey, like, how do you think we could work better next time? And what did you learn from this session? You ask that to Claude Code or Cursor, whatever you're in. And what it'll do is it'll tell you like, oh, I've noticed you like this and you don't like this. And you want that and you want this. I'm like, okay, add that to the memory then so you know next time. So it helps get better and more fine-tuned. There's also automatic learning in the background that it's doing across trends and patterns. But that's something where you could do it yourself too and navigate it.
So this is key. A lot of people mess up here because they don't start on the foundational level. They just start at the general purpose level. And this is where things like what you call AI slop or bad outputs or whatever it is. And so the fact that, hey, start at principles, who you are, what's important for the model to know, et cetera, your North Star, your direction, and then the memory. I love that trick. So I'll repeat that just in case for those, if you tuned out for a second, was memory is so key now. All the models have it. You're obviously, as you continue to use them and build more things, you want it to remember and have context, right? So you're providing context, and in the memory, what I love about what you just said was you ask it about what it learned, what was key, and then you just say, add that to the memory. And it's that simple. It's not like you got to go program memory. It's just asking questions, making sure that you're clear on what to program memory. So I love, that was a great pro tip.
Thanks, man. Yeah, those are the little things that I try and like be obsessive and I'll test it out to see how it works. That works really good. So moving down the line, so like you could do bigger picture annual review, vivid vision. And as you can see, there's like different people, like Ideal Life Costing, but Tim Ferriss is integrated in there. Tony Robbins, how he approaches it from there. Lieberman had a life map, and then there's like a CEO decision-making framework. So these are all rooted in like proven strategies and techniques. And then if you look at it, is basically it's also got like the past year's reflection. And then one of the things I do interview-wise is, as you can see in here, is I'll do daily interviews. So it's like it's maybe 3 to 5 minutes. And I could even show you the template of that when we get into it. But basically it's just, hey, what was your day? What was your energy level? What was your biggest win? What was your biggest challenge? And the cool thing is, if you do this over time, it picks up patterns and hidden things that you don't see within yourself, right? That's something that I find highly valuable. And then the cool thing about it is I can say, okay, do my weekly review process. If I do that, it'll spit out it'll pre-plan my next week, review my past week, and then give me insights on things that I'm doing really good at or goals I'm neglecting and missing, right? Based on what I identified up front. So it's, hey, you're 2 weeks behind this, you need to get going, right? So proactively is giving me advice on blind spots that I have or goals I'm tracking. It says if I'm ahead of goals too, right? That's the other thing. It's not just negative. And then the cool thing about it too is you could upload docs into the folder and then it'll encompass that. So one of the things that I do is called the brain dump. Sometimes I get my best ideas when I'm walking down the street or I just get out of the shower, right? So I'll click on my phone, I get a Google Doc, and then I'll just talk whatever I'm thinking. It doesn't need to be structured. I'll upload that at the end of the week and have that process and have it look at trends across that too. So
Dude, that's awesome. Can I ask you one question on the daily check-in? Because I love that. Is this something that you just set a calendar reminder and then go into Claude and do it? Is this something that it triggers you at some point during the day to answer questions? But how do you like execute that just for the audience that's listening?
yeah, so you could have it send you alert to your check-in. I usually do it at the end of the day, and there's days that I miss, right? But it literally takes 5 minutes. I'll either do it at the end of my workday or I'll do it at basically like the end of the right before I go to bed, whatever.
Nice.
Instead of journaling, I'll do it. It's kind of like my version of journaling.
You're journaling.
Yeah. And then I did find something else that's useful too, man. It's a lot more visually stimulating. So if we're looking at it, this is like the whole agent orchestration architecture. And so the cool thing about it is this is how it's mapped a little bit more succinctly. So it's got the data sources that I'm connected to, memory within Airtable, so not depending on CRM or a note taker. And then I have an intelligence layer of different agents. Some of these are learning agents, outcome trackers, right? And then this is just like the interface. Okay. So these are just like multiple ways. And then there's a feedback loop that I have, and then kind of source of truth in terms of like how to look at this. And obviously there's first principles that I look at, what's right, what's wrong, use cases across different areas within this. So these are just a couple examples of the overall structure of that. That makes sense.
Yeah. No, it's a great visual. And this is your probably the best word that comes to mind. So it's probably not the right one, but like command center that you can see, like, where's my architecture? How are, what are things running and connected to each other, and kind of your architecture map to where something is, you want to change something, you want to add something, or something's not working just correctly. You got a good guide to see what you're using, how you're using it, what's it connected to, et cetera, which I think is important, because for those that are building, as you get more agents or as you get more things connected, it's hard to keep up with, oh, wait, what's going where and how's it going and what am I using? And so having that is a foundational piece to have.
Yeah, I did smart, man. Your part. And the other thing I forgot to tell you is I don't even think that was on my diagram because this is evolving so fast, but I'll like candidate score people that I'm trying to hire for, not just initially based on the resume and what they submit, but also based on the actual interview transcripts, and then stack rank them versus the other providers or other people, I should say. So that's been super. And then it even gives me like, okay, these candidates are really good here. These are red flags. You want to dig into this deeper. So it's like a coach, like sitting on my shoulder, who's looking at all the data instantaneously and then seeing what the opportunities are. So
that's awesome. That's awesome.
The other one, which I'll show you right now, is the content intelligence. So this system allows me to operate at the speed of thought. So let me give you some examples. I said, okay, I need to update my ideal customer profile and my messaging and all those details, right? What I want you to do is, because my business is evolving really fast, working with bigger and bigger companies. And so I'm like, all right, only do this last 6 months of closed deals, look through all the transcripts, reverse engineer a new ICP, the way they talk, the language they use, the questions they ask, the problems they want solved, and then give me a 2 or 3 pages briefing doc. I did that and it took 2 minutes, right? Off of 6 months of calls that weren't even tagged. They were at the transcript level because I have an API connected to or Fathom. Fathom is my note taker that I use. That's one example. So like another thing I did, this was pretty cool. This took an iteration, but I also did that with like, all right, identify every epiphany that my clients have had over the last 12 months and put those into categories, whether it's like emotional or it's just a new idea, right? And it did all that, pulled it up in 5 minutes, like the entire year, right? With like exact quotes and examples, right? So that's the shit that's like, I'm like, whoa, like I never used to be able to do that before. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the crazy thing, you can relate this to many different functions in a business or go to market. It's like we have so many conversations every day. We have so many thoughts, as you mentioned, and I'll go back to something that I thought was great, which was pull up a Google Doc, you talk to it, and then you don't have to have it in any sort of structure. You don't have to have it in editing. You just dump it in and it figures out there's so much of a gold mine in the conversations that we have in that data to find patterns, to find insights and info, or just like you said, when you're walking, like just putting it into the system that you've built helps it learn, helps it pattern match, helps find things that you may have not even found. You're like, oh, this is a theme that I should be thinking about or talking about more, or maybe even incorporating in my business outputs or my conversations with my clients, because it's obviously a pattern amongst all of them. So there's just so much there. If you got it hooked up to your own system, your operating system that you're talking about, so powerful.
Totally agree, man. And here's something that like I'll go off the rails with sometimes in terms of my curiosity. And I'm like, all right, tell me, like, based on everything you know about me, tell me 3 things that I should be focused on that I'm not right now and why. And it's like, this person specifically said in this call, another client said the same thing. Another one said this. These are like runaway opportunities for you. And there's nothing else in the world that could give me that data that fast with that much context. Not even another person on my team, they don't even know. Like this, like these guys know more about my business than probably I do, even because they can look at all the data simultaneously. You know what I mean? It's exciting and scary. But here's what, here, let me show you an example. So there's unstructured ways, like I just told you, and then there's structured ways. So I have this one called, like, all I have to do is drop in and say weekly content, and it maps out. So like 10 posts in my exact writing style based on my exact experiences that I have and the exact language that I use, because it's connected to not just the context of who I am and what I do, but it's also connected to effectively like all the transcripts, my CRM. So this is an example. I fired a $150,000 client last week because they just weren't a good fit. And so they were interested in me and wanted us to keep doing stuff. And I'm like, this just isn't a good fit. You can't move as fast as you need to. It basically talks about how my AI built its own improvement plan, right? So it's like exactly what I did for that, right? So these are all rooted in like real world experience, not just flop, right? And these are things that I've had experiences with $300 million companies or $1 billion companies, right? So these are cool firsthand stories that I could share. But if I were to try and do this, that process alone would probably take me like 5-6 hours, right? And I could just pop it in there and it gives me an entire report that I still edit it, right? I'll look at it, tweak it, but it's totally sanitized, Jonathan. That's the amusing thing. It doesn't give confidential data. It doesn't do that. So I was like, oh, this is amazing, right? And like we were talking before, people doing 7 clay tables to try and get that customization, whereas you could just do that. And I'm at the point now where I'm starting to automate it. So automatically, I don't even need to ask it anymore. It just serves it up.
Yeah. And so connecting those dots, as you mentioned, which is you would have never got that level of specificity to you, to what you do, and also to almost real time what's happening, because it's the things that happened last week or yesterday, or maybe even today or whatever it is, without kind of that OS system that you built and where you started, creating all of those things together and then being able to get those outputs. And to your point, you mentioned slop. That's where slop begins, or it's even harder to do with clay table and expensive. Just putting all those tables together in itself is super expensive to run on an ongoing basis. And so I think this is like really the power of how you build your own kind of AI native system. And that sounds scary, but really, when you break it down to like its core, it's just really a bunch of folders and file structures and knowledge that you've shared in text or video or other things. And it just uses an LLM to basically help learn the memory, know your principles, et cetera. So this is not like something that you have to necessarily go code and build software. So those out there are thinking, how the hell am I going to do this? Because I can't build this shit. It's not that difficult to do. It's really folders, information, attach it to like Claude Code, and you're on your way. And then, yeah, you can do things like you mentioned your API to Fathom, so you can pull things in, or I use Granola. So same thing, pulling that context in or updating it on an ongoing basis. It's very powerful. And if you're just getting started, we could reach out to us. We can help you through there, but ultimately it's not that hard to set up. It takes a little time. So there's not an easy button of click and it's going to go, and just does take some time, but it's not difficult to do.
Yeah. Totally agree.
Awesome. And anything else? So tell us just before we get off, any other things that your personal OS or your CEO OS, or even a couple of the others that you use, just some outputs. You don't have to show them, but just what all is it outputting for you on say a daily or weekly basis?
Great question. I'll type in pipeline report and it'll pull from HubSpot and then layer in context from the transcripts and my notes and even notes within Google Drive if I have them. And then what it'll do is it'll map out like high priority accounts I need to focus on, next best action across everything at scale, and then stack rank, like you need to focus on this and this because this aligns directly with your goals. So that's just it's basically like a slash command to do that. So that's one thing that's super powerful on the pipeline side. I think the other thing too, man, like goals are really hard, in my opinion, to track because things are moving so fast, and then update and align. And so this is what keeps me on track. I had like bigger picture vision goals and what I wanted for the year. But then as I go through the month, shit happens and things change. And the beautiful thing about it is, let's say we're in March 2nd right now as of recording. I can say like, all right, like I just did this earlier today. I said, do a monthly review. So I looked across all that context that I told you about, everything that I did. And it gave me some like really good insights in terms of you had a killer month and this is why. And it's also told me I've had a bad month. So it's not all near whatever the hell you call it.
Sunshine and rainbows every day.
Yeah. It's not puppy dogs and ice cream all the time. But that shit. Yeah. But it was like, dude, you made a major leap in how you do things over the last month and what you built and who you're talking to. And there's validation in the market. And that's stuff that I think as a founder or as an executive, like you are in a bigger company, like that shit that like, you don't have something sitting on your shoulder, like giving you the advice, and like the advice it's given me has sometimes kept me grounded, sometimes refocused me. Like it's been really freaking good, dude. So and executives get paid for the quality of decisions they make, the big decisions. And this is what it's helping, but all the micro decisions as well. I think those are probably the big ones. The other part I didn't talk about is the product operating system. My product is like the experience that customers have, the results they get in terms of AI training, but I'm doing AI managed services for them now as well. And then even I'm doing beta right now with some clients where I'm building this out for them. Yeah. So that they could have that internally and use it. But what it does, Jonathan, is it tracks as well. And also is starting to connect all the different operating systems. So my CEO understands what the sales is, what the product is. It gives me feedback, identifies upsell signals, like all those things too. And then it's learning over time with all the memory. So anyways, that's kind of how it's all connected, man. And that's what I've been working on.
Super crazy. And so I'll have to say then, so it's not just Claude, Cowork, connectors, and plugins that's causing the stock market and SaaS to go down. It's you too. So you're part of this thing.
Yeah, just I don't know, man. And like, I'm glad you brought up Cowork, because like, I would say Claude is like very basic, right? But you can get really good results. It's got a different memory layer than ChatGPT, I've noticed. But then Claude Cowork, you have to download the desktop app. That's like a gateway drug to this, which is a more advanced version, right? Gateway drug sounds negative, so maybe it's not. That's an intermediate path, but you'll start to see what's possible within there. And I was actually building out plugins, my own custom plugins for Cowork to see how those worked. And so that's been pretty cool too, right? But yeah, that's what I say. It's like chatbot, then you got like Cowork, and then you got like Claude Code. And the good thing is if you connect it with Cursor, you could use any model. So I could use Codex 5.3, I could use Sonnet 4.6, it doesn't matter. So that's the other thing that's super useful.
Yeah, no, I think I shared this on LinkedIn and a couple other places, but man, 2022, 23, and even 24, ChatGPT had my heart, man. It had my heart. I think both of us shared it, but I was in like the top 0.1% of users.
Yeah.
And all the stuff, right? And then 2025 hit and stuff started changing, man. And towards the back half of 25, like Claude took over. It took over the majority of my work. And then once they from the Claude Code perspective, as you mentioned, but then even Cowork, like having those in the desktop app, you have all three. So I can go chat, Cowork, or code, right? And so I don't even have to use the terminal, which I do use, but man, they are doing some really good stuff with their plugins, their connectors. And then to your point, that kind of intermediate, because Claude Code is so powerful, but it's scary. it's scary for a lot of people. You get this terminal and you're like, what do I do with this thing? And so Cowork has brought a more of a UI, UX to it. So you can, and now while it doesn't do full coding, but it does do a lot of things. Like you still build your visuals, dashboards, all the different things. So I agree with you. I think they've come a long way and it's been great to see. Man, this has been awesome. I've learned a ton. In fact, I've got some notes down that I'm actually gonna add some things. So I appreciate that. So I can only imagine the mind blown audience, what they're going to think about this too. But tell us, make sure to let everybody know where they can find you. Obviously you're on LinkedIn, you've got the newsletter, but tell everyone where they can find you and where to go to keep up with what you're doing.
Yeah, I think probably LinkedIn is the easiest, best way to find me. I publish content on there every single day, just about, or 5 days a week. I think that's probably the best. I have 500 plus shows from the Scale Up show. I'm taking a break from that. Actually, I needed a few months because I did 5.5 years straight, not missing. I needed a little break. But yeah, LinkedIn's going to be the best. My website is very mediocre. I need to update it right now and pull the, oh, sure. But
Too busy building and shipping, man.
yeah, website done. Heck, by the time this is released, that might be even new. But LinkedIn's the best, I would say. Connect with me there. Feel free to shoot me a DM if you're looking for help with your organization. Like I said, usually I work with the CRO or the CMO. Now it's even the CEO and sometimes the whole C-suite in terms of what they're doing. But yeah, if something like this seems cool and you're interested in what's possible for your team, definitely just drop me a DM or a connection request with the details and then go from there.
Awesome. Make sure you follow him. He's awesome. He does. I follow him. I look at his stuff every day, learn stuff from him all the time. So make sure you do the same. So again, Ryan, thanks, man, for joining. Thank you to the audience this has been another amazing episode of the GTM AI podcast. We'll see you next time. Cheers, y'all.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the GTM AI podcast. Please like, subscribe, and come back for more.